Now recording.
Okay. And darn, it's not giving me the option.
Is there something I should do on my end?
I don't know, because when we practiced setting it up earlier in the week to the live stream, there were more options than are showing now.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what's.
I've had problems doing the live stream thing also.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But maybe because I was the original host, maybe I have to do it.
Oh, I didn't think about that, because when I practiced, I was the host.
Well, let's see. Can I make you? I might be able to make you actual
Can you switch places
host.
with me? Okay.
Because I made you co-host, but I can make you host. So I'm going to do that.
Okay. And then maybe it'll light up.
All the power.
Yeah, you have all the power of this meeting right now.
Wow. Now it shows. Okay, that was
good.
the trick.
I don't think we can get rid of it.
All right.
It doesn't show.
It should.
Okay.
Yes.
The reading service had a problem processing contact supporter. Well.
Okay.
And then Sue and Keith, do you want to just remind everybody who's not actively presenting to just mute themselves?
Okay. So I've connected us to Facebook. Let me just go to Facebook and make sure it's actually streaming. Okay, so we seem good. We're alive. So if anyone in the meeting isn't actively talking, if you a couple of minutes, because it's like 5:58, and then we'll get started and get people introduced and go through the presentation.
Work out, but.
We're going to hear it.
Yeah.
I guess we don't need any visuals.
See who the crappy neighbors are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, someone who's called in on the line, if you want to just, yeah, there you go, mute yourself. That's perfect.
Want me to read you the access code?
No, that's what I use.
Now, do you want to go ahead and get started, or do you think we should wait another minute?
No, I think I was just looking. We have a good number of participants. So yeah,
Okay.
I think we're ready. No, just to say a quick thank you all so much for joining, for taking time out of your evening. And also just to say, I know for some this has been a few years, and for others this has been decades of a wait for this project. So we're just really, really grateful to all the different people who made this possible. There's a lot of previous elected officials at the state and local level, as well as just community advocates who kept never gave up, a lot of patience and perseverance. So thank you. And then of course to Susan Cullen and Keith Bryans on the town side, and Dominic and Steve at BNL, just a huge thank you. The amount of work and kind of dedication you guys have put towards this project is really inspiring to see. So just a big thank you. And I'll go on mute now and hand things back over to you. But thank you to everyone in the community for joining, and we look forward to your questions.
All right, Susan, if you don't have anything, I can kick it off. Thank you, Danielle. We're here to talk, to have a public information meeting about the Pawcatuck Sidewalk Improvements Project. Sorry, before I go into the meat of the presentation, what I want to do is just go over a couple of the logistics for the WebEx format. So I'd like to highlight that for connecting to the audio for this button right here that's highlighted in yellow is where you can mute, unmute yourself, change your audio device. Over on the right hand side, there's a chat function. So we're going to utilize that chat function, especially for the comments, to help keep things organized, make sure everyone is able to get a comment in. And then finally, the stop video function, that allows you to just turn your screen off if you care for it, or turn it on. And then finally, just to get into the chat portion, again, use the chat function to ask any questions. We will, have unmute the phones and allow anyone to voice their questions at the end. But when using the chat, you can choose who to send the comment to. You can choose to send it to the whole group that's joined the meeting, or you can choose to send it at least to myself and Susan. That way we're able to capture that and respond at the end of the meeting. And when you do send in a comment or a question, please include your name and your email and address. That way we have a way to contact you if there's any follow-up that's needed. So to really kick it off, my name is Steve Frazier. I'm with BL Companies, professional engineer, licensed in the state of Connecticut. BL is headquartered in Meriden. We're out of our Hartford office. Actually, this is my home office right now. We're all kind of working from home. And joining me is Dom Seltruda, a landscape architect. Mike Fisher is the engineer of record for the project, and Dr. Susan Cullen is joining us as the Director of Economic and Community Development. Just to show you the team that is really working together to get this project through. Tonight we're going to talk about the project limits. I'm going to go over where our work is proposed. We're going to go over the purpose and need for this project, and go through a little bit of the existing conditions that are out there now, as well as going through what we proposed to for the proposed improvements. And finally, we'll open it up to an open comment period. So on the screen now is a location map of where the project is. It's along US Route 1 and the Pawcatuck portion of Stonington. The red box highlights contains the area that this project occurs in. These orange dashes are portions of the road that we are proposing to add new sidewalks to, and I'll get into a closer up view and more detail later on. I just want to highlight for your reference, the Stonington High School is to the lower left. That's the southern limits of the project at Spellman Drive. And that continues northward along the north side of the road from Spellman, or really the police station driveway to Birchwood is part of our limits. And then there's a break. And the north side work continues at the Pawcatuck Shopping Center. From the right-hand side of the driveway, continuing east, connecting to an existing terminus of sidewalk. Along the south side of the road, which is this portion that I'm just running along with my pointer, there are gaps of sidewalks, and so we're closing those gaps. That's why the orange line starts and stops throughout the limits. The northern end of the limits is Mayflower Avenue. To go over the purpose and need for the project, the primary purpose is to improve pedestrian safety. As many of you are aware, there are gaps of sidewalks through this stretch of US Route 1, and we want to be able to close those gaps and connect all the pedestrian users, all the way down to the high school and further north. And so that's really the primary purpose, is that pedestrian safety and connectivity. The existing conditions that are out there now, as I mentioned, this project is between Spellman Drive on the southern side and Mayflower Avenue on the north side. It's about 4,800 feet. The land use throughout this corridor is a mix. There's some residential single-family homes, few apartment style uses, as well as some commercial and businesses throughout the corridor. The existing sidewalks that are out there now, some of them are in good condition, others are narrow or non-existent. And some of the places where there are sidewalks, some of the sidewalks are right up against the road, and other locations have the sidewalks that have a grass strip between the sidewalk and the road. There are utilities through this corridor as well, and there are a number of overhead utility, telecommunication, electrical utilities along the poles, as well as underground utilities. And especially to note, there's gas and water through this corridor. So to speak to the proposed improvements that we're talking about tonight, the new sidewalks that we put in will be 5 feet wide, and where possible, we're going to put a grass shelf between the sidewalk and the road. There are a number of places where we chose to have the sidewalk monolithic with the curb, which means that it's all one piece, if you will. And that helps reduce the impacts due to constructing the sidewalk. Where there's sidewalks that are crossing driveways, we are proposing to reconstruct that end of the driveway so that the grades coming off the sidewalks blend into the driveway grades in order to meet ADA requirements. The larger photo on the right shows the Apocatux Shopping Center intersection. At this intersection, there is a pedestrian push button on the south side of the road that we will relocate due to the project. We're proposing a new sidewalk ramp down to the road, which will cross the road, and that resulted in the need to move that pedestrian push button to make room for the ramp. Also at this intersection, just to the north of it, we will propose limited drainage improvements. proposing a new catch basin along the southern side of the road. And then we're going to need to extend an existing pipe out about 15 feet to the south in order to make room for the new sidewalk that's going there, and also to get the drop off that's created with that pipe at the inlet, get that drop off out of the clear zone of the road. This clear zone is an area that vehicles can recover if they inadvertently run off the road. And we want to be able to have that space clear enough so that there's no drop off. Finally, or not finally, but we are also introducing curbing along sections. As I mentioned, there are sections of the road where the existing grades come up very steeply off the edge of road, almost acting like a curb. And in some areas where we are adding curbing, we're actually improving. We're not really changing the drainage patterns, but we're able to put curbing there to help with the sidewalk construction. And it has a double effect of reducing some of the erosion that normally would occur with the soil. Finally, throughout the project limits, we're going to restripe the travel lanes. The existing lanes out there are 12 feet wide, and we're going to restripe them so that they're 11 feet wide. This allows a little more room in the shoulder, and we're also going to propose these sharrows, if you call them, but they're bicycle pavement markings along the corridor. And that'll help motorists be alert to the fact that there may be bicycles using the shoulder or part of the lane through the stretch. More of an awareness that we were able to fit in for this project. I'm going to go through a series of our proposed plans just to show you exactly where we're putting new sidewalks for the project. On the screen here, Spellman Drive is on the lower left, and the police department driveway is on the upper left. And the orange is meant to indicate new sidewalk that we're proposing. The green strip and the kind of darker brown strip, those are areas where we'll be putting topsoil and establishing grass there, but it was disturbed soil that we needed to mess up and really disturb in order to construct that sidewalk. But once it's complete, it'll be topsoiled and then seeded. So between the police department driveway and Brookside Lane, we are proposing the new sidewalk right up against the road with new curb. And continuing across Brookside Lane, there is a median between the two driveway entrances, and we're going to continue the sidewalk there. And then between the northern driveway entrance and the Stonington Arms apartments, we're going to have the sidewalk be able to be offset from the road and have some a grass strip between the road and the sidewalk. And we'll terminate that sidewalk at the end of an existing sidewalk to create that connectivity. The south side, this is in the area of the former Levant Cafe. The highlighted orange part in brown just to the upper left of the Levant Cafe text there was a steep ramp there coming down to the driveway from the sidewalk, and we're going to reconstruct that to meet ADA requirements. It was a small impact. And then continuing to the north and east from there, we are proposing new sidewalk in an area where there isn't any sidewalk. This blue circle really highlights one of the very narrow constricting portions of the corridor that we're minimizing the impacts to the surrounding area by having the sidewalk right up against the road. And then we need to excavate out the ground because it's a hill on that side. So there are some impacts that go further back. However, we're minimizing them by keeping the sidewalk right up against the road. Continuing to the north, again, highlighted in that blue circle, we're adding sidewalk right up against the road. This is where we are coordinating currently with the gas company There is a gas main and water main through that area that we're going to need to accommodate, whether it's reconstructed, relocated, or maintaining the existing thing. We're currently coordinating with those companies. And then the sidewalk on the southern side terminates at the end, at the beginning of new sidewalk that was recently constructed this past summer at the housing development, just across the street from Birchwood Drive. On the northern side here, we are adding new sidewalk coming from the Stonington Arms apartments, moving north and eastward. And we're able to have some space between the road and the sidewalk. We are narrowing the sidewalk in some locations to, again, reduce impacts both to properties and utilities, but still maintain the width that's needed for ADA compliance. And then the northern portion terminates at Birchwood Drive. As we move north and east along US Route 1, this is another section where we're proposing a new sidewalk. This is in the area of the Connecticut Behavioral Health Associates. A couple of small stretches, and like I said, there's gaps of starts and stops of sidewalks, and this is one of the stops that we're completing, which was really the purpose of the project. Moving northward, this stretch actually has all existing sidewalks, so we did not need to do any proposed work on this plan. However, in the area of just south of the post office, there's another stretch where there's no sidewalk, and so again, we're going to be putting the sidewalk right up against the road. And if you're wondering what this thin gray shading is just above the orange line, it's indicating 2 foot width of road that we need to reconstruct. And that's needed because we're gonna cut the road 2 feet off the edge of road, excavate down, and that allows us to build the sidewalk and tie into the existing road with a better connection. And so that's what that gray shading indicates. Moving northward, again, there's more sidewalks that we're able to maintain and use. And then just north and east of the Sunoco driveway, again, there's going to be another sidewalk that we're going to construct right up against the road. These slant hatches indicate the ends of driveways that need to be reconstructed. As we move north and east, this is getting to the Apocatux Shopping Center intersection. So the left-hand larger blue circle, I just want to highlight this area again was another very restrictive location for the project. And we are able to minimize impacts by having a sidewalk right up against the road. However, we do need to construct a retaining wall for a short length in this area in order to further minimize the impacts to the property. The larger hatched driveway that's kind of on the lower left of that larger blue circle and indicates a lot of driveway that needs to be regraded, reconstructed for the project because it's so steep. We needed to carry the grades back in order to have the end of the driveway tie into the sidewalk grades to meet the ADA requirements. The other thing I want to highlight in this plan is the right-hand blue circle. This is the area where we have the minor drainage improvements for the project. There will be a catch basin with a grate that's meant to be usable in areas where there's either pedestrians or bicyclist users. And that catch basin is going to be at the edge of road to catch the water that's coming down either way. And then we are extending the pipe. There's currently an existing pipe at this location that goes under the road. However, we need to extend it further away from the road in order to make room for the new sidewalk. This area does have wetland impacts, and we recently, last week, met with the Wetlands Commission and got approval for this project. because we were able to minimize those wetland impacts. The last thing I want to mention from this plan and moving to the next couple is we're actually going to be constructing the proposed sidewalk moving in closer to the middle of the road rather than keeping it at the existing edge of road. And this was an effort to minimize property impacts, to avoid impacting the utility poles that are through this area. And then there are also stone walls along these properties that we're able to avoid impacting by making a slight shift of the sidewalk in closer to the road. At the same time, we're able to maintain that 11-foot travel lane for the road and a 3-foot shoulder. So it's kind of an all-around win-win situation that we're able to do. In this photo, or in this plan, we have the blue circle is just highlighting the Lathrop Ave and South Broad Street intersection. We needed to reconstruct that intersection because of that shift of the sidewalk closer to the middle of the road. And finally, we're at the limits of the project at Mayflower, where we tie back into the existing sidewalk that's just to the south and west of this intersection. So we wanted to put a rendering together to give a visual on what this will look like once it's constructed. So this image is you're standing on South Broad Street, looking north and east, and the Pawcatuck shopping center is on your left here. In this area, you'll see that we're proposing, in this rendering, the new sidewalk right up against the road. We have the new retaining wall and reset stone wall through here. And then on the north side of the road, there's a short stretch of sidewalk that we're proposing, and it continues on. For this project, there are utility impacts. However, for the overhead utility impacts, we're able to minimize those and keep them to just a few select guy wire relocations. And really, this is more of allowing the guy wires, which help support the poles, to be installed in a way that will allow pedestrian, to pass underneath without being impeded. And also, there will be a gas main relocation due to the new sidewalk coming through the hill. And the photo in the upper right, across the street is where the new sidewalk would be going. There will likely be a gas main relocation associated with that work. There are property impacts associated with this project, and we've done a lot of different things to minimize those impacts. But those impacts look like easements to construct and maintain a sidewalk, or easements to construct and maintain a retaining wall. There are also rights to grade, construct a driveway, install sedimentation control system, which is the silt fence that helps with erosion control, as well as rights to remove trees where it's needed necessary for the project. Currently, the town is working closely with the property owners working through those impacts and easements. There are a few permits that are required for this project. The local inland wetland permit, as I mentioned, has recently been approved, so we have that permit in hand. It's under a statutory public review, and then it will officially have it. We will be submitting shortly to the Army Corps of Engineers for a self-verification permit. This is due to the wetland impacts, but the drainage improvements. And finally, we're working with the Department of Transportation to obtain an encroachment permit. And this is necessary because all of this work is occurring within the DOT's state route right away. For this project, as far as financials and schedule, design is anticipated to be completed this spring, with construction starting as soon as possible and completing in the fall of this year. The total project cost is $950,000, and anticipated funding sources are municipal funds as well as Urban Act grant funds. Currently, there's $600,000 committed from the Urban Act grant. So that really concludes the presentation part of it. Before we get into the open comment period, I do want to go through a few of the frequently asked questions that have come up over the past few days or weeks. The first question is, how will I be notified of construction on my property? And so typically once the project has been advertised and a contractor is on board and under contract with the town, either us or we will work with or the town will reach out and notify property owners throughout the corridor, whether that's through a letter. Sometimes that's done through the town's website as well. So that's typically how you would receive notification of the construction. The second question, where will mailboxes be placed? So in areas where we have a grass strip between the proposed curbing or edge of road and the proposed sidewalk, the mailbox will be relocated there, and that'll be, the contractor will work with the property owner or tenant when that time comes up to just kind of point out where exactly they would like that mailbox. And as far as when there's the sidewalk right up against the road, again, those mailboxes will be indicated and placed on our plans. That way the contractor can accommodate the new mailboxes when they place the sidewalk. The next question is, how will property access be maintained during construction? So first, property access will be maintained during construction. If your property has only one driveway, whether it's a business or a home, the contractor will coordinate with the tenant property owner to find out what time is needed for access and what times would be best to, temporarily close off that access because they need to dig down. For whatever case, if the contractor can't complete that work in one day, they will leave it so that the property owner or tenant can drive over the temporary stone or the temporary plate, whatever it may be, so that access is always available. If your property has two driveway entrances, we'll be sure that the contract plans and documents indicate that they can only close one driveway entrance at a time, only work on one at a time. That way access is maintained throughout construction. Another comment or question was, will construction debris and material be cleaned up if a mess is made on my property? So the short answer is yes. The long answer is the contractor is required to work within the limits of disturbance and within the easement areas that we have on the plans. And those areas will be restored to their original condition. If there was grass and they disturb it, they would put topsoil and put grass seed on it so that it becomes lawn again. If there's debris such as forming boards, all of those will be cleaned up at the end of the project. That's part of the punch list and part of the last pieces that need to come together for the project to be complete. Finally, the last question, it's closely tied to the previous one, but what will happen to my lawn if it gets damaged by construction activities? So again, if it's within the limits of disturbance that are on our plan, those are called for to be treated with topsoil and grass seed so that lawn can be reestablished. If for whatever reason disturbance extends beyond what we planned for, the contractor is still held responsible for that, and so they would be responsible for reestablishing that lawn. So that concludes the presentation. I think we can open it up to comments now. Let me see the chat here. So I don't see any comments in the chat. I don't know if there's anyone on the phone who have called in who would like to speak.
And don't forget to unmute yourself if you're out there.
Hello? Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you. Yes.
I tried to get on the website and it wouldn't work. So I don't know how many people are actually on. The town website listed on the town webpage did not work for me anyway. I don't know how many other people.
Okay.
That's disappointing. I'm concerned about that pipe because I can't see where you're talking about. Could you be a little bit more specific with businesses that are in the area of the pipe? I own property on the opposite side of the street. That's why I'm asking. And there are two pipes going across the street on my property, going into the wetlands from my side of the street. So I'm just wondering where this pipe is that you're talking about.
Sure. So let me reshare my screen. I'll just,
no, I can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it? Okay. So I'll describe it to you.
Also, we are recording this. I just want to chime in. We are recording this. Recording will be made available. So if you were unable to see the actual presentation, the town is recording the presentation for viewing at a later time as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
My
so
property is below the shopping plaza, the very about 350 feet.
Okay.
On the shopping center. Is that where this pipe is that you're talking about?
So if you're standing in the shopping center driveway looking across Route 1, the pipe is off to the left, maybe 50 feet away from the driveway entrance. So there's an existing pipe that crosses Route 1 in that location, and we needed to extend it in order to install the sidewalk.
So you're actually draining water from that pipe drains a little brook or whatever it is behind the shopping plaza.
Actually, so it flows the other way, believe it or not. In that area, it goes from the southern side of US Route 1 northward underneath the shopping plaza and then outlets behind the shopping plaza at some point, and then it eventually makes its way back. But in that area, that pipe is flowing the other direction.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm not completely convinced of that, but not being able to see it makes sense for me. I will be going to the town hall to look at is Keith listening in?
Yes.
Keith on?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Keith, I will be coming in to look at the plans. You obviously have some plans there, right?
We do, yeah.
Okay, I will. I'm not quite sure about where that pipe is. Is it a new pipe or it's an existing pipe? If it's an existing pipe, it's probably on my property.
It's an existing pipe, and it is between.
Do you have property names? Because Avalonia, the name of my property is Donnarummo, and then next to me is Avalonia, a very small piece of property, and then there's a private home, and then there's the shopping plaza.
You said,
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm on now, but the area in question is, and I think the Core Plus Credit Union is still there. It's right adjacent to that property,
correct,
which is 38, number 30, house 38, and then there's basically, if you walk right across the intersection, it's to your left hand side. I think your property, and correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, you're further down on the right or more towards the borough than towards Pawcatuck downtown.
Right, because there are two pipes over there.
Correct.
Water.
Yeah, no, that's a double catch basin. We're not even touching that.
Okay.
Sorry. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
So, good evening. This is Matt Gimple. I have a question. I heard a couple of times how the sidewalk is going to be pushed out to the edge of the street, and in some cases may even be pushed closer towards the center line of the street. Is there any consideration in your plans or in the town's planning process in a longer term setting for bike lanes? Because I'm concerned that when that sidewalk is now pushing right out to the edge of the road, you're going to be creating a dangerous situation for cyclists who are used to using this Route 1 area to get back and forth.
Sure. I can respond to that. So a majority of the corridor is matching the edge of road. So there's very little change for the majority of it. However, in the area of the shopping plaza, on the south side of the road, and moving north and east, there is a slight shift of the edge of road towards the middle of the road. And it sounds worse than it is because we're able to maintain the 11-foot lane. And then through this area, we're also going to be having at least as wide as 2 feet shoulder. And it'll stretch into 3 feet, and then it'll match into the existing shoulders. Widening further down the corridor, as far as like widening the shoulders, was something that we spoke with the town early on, and we did an assessment to see if we could do it. However, knowing the financial constraints and the real focus of the project being at least connecting and closing the pedestrian gaps, we were not able to widen the road out, at least at this point in time.
Yeah, currently out there, just to chime in too, there's a zero shoulder aspect out there right now, so we are creating a new shoulder, especially if you're going towards Pawcatuck proper. We're maintaining the shoulder on the other side in terms of the width, and it's actually an improvement. What the Department of Transportation along this corridor has decided on is the 11-foot lanes are acceptable, which are tighter, and then the addition of the sharrows. So we're trying to improve both the balance of pedestrian and bike traffic. We understand it is a corridor for both, but also trying to balance that out with property impacts, direct line property impacts. And like Steve said, if you look at the overall scope and breadth of the project, there's only a couple of areas where we have to road diet, and some of those are to the advantage of actually setting up a more smoother transition, both for vehicular and bicycle traffic.
Okay, I appreciate the answers. Again, when you started talking about how that sidewalk might be abutting the actual road surface tighter, that became concerning. And like the previous question, the town website, the link is definitely broke to the presentation, so I had to call in. So thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry for the trouble with the link being broken. We did actually test it in advance, so I'm not really sure what's going on, but we will post the presentation up on the town's website. These plans are available upstairs in the Department of Planning's office, and I could also make available paper copies of the presentation if that was helpful to someone as well. We could also email, I can't email the plans because they're too large, but I could email the presentation, and we could definitely make smaller copies of the plans if that was helpful.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds good.
I have a question. Is there any, this is Bruce Arnold. My link worked fine on the website, by the way, to get in here. So I'm not sure. Is there any idea of trying to extend the sidewalks to Birdland over to Swan Street? I know it's more money, but I know there's a lot of students that work at the high school that can't really walk safely to school, and it's ridiculous that it's so close.
So I can start off with that. I know, so we worked with the town to focus the scope of this project on this area. Knowing that there are gaps in different places, and trying to make the most that we can, close as many gaps as we can with the amount of funding that's available. So even within the corridor that we're proposing, it may end up being split up into smaller chunks when it's constructed. However, extending it further, that's something that, if the town chooses to do so, that would could be a possibility, but it would be dependent on funding.
I have a question. My name is Byron Stillman.
Yep, go ahead.
This is going to impact us. We're at 138, and I know the hill's an issue. I saw the pitch of the wall, retaining wall down in front of 37 across from the shopping plaza. There are drawings up available now that we can look at and see what the impact is going to be, because it is going to be heavily impacted here. The trees and the distance from the road. So I'm all for this project and have been for 20 years before somebody gets killed here. But my questions are, I mean, we pick up liability from these sidewalks. We have to keep these sidewalks clean all the time. I mean, are we, you know what I mean? Are we liable to keep these sidewalks clean from snow and whatever have you?
So, Susan, I believe that's correct. That the ownership, or not ownership, but the responsibility of clearing the sidewalks would be on the property owner.
Yes, Steve, that's correct. So there is a town ordinance about clearing sidewalks in front of your home and on your piece of property. And so these would be for these different 28 property owners. They would be each responsible for clearing the snow off of those sidewalks. They would also be responsible in the case of if they were draining water off of their home or something onto the sidewalk that impacted the sidewalk, you'd be responsible for that. Now, in the case of a sidewalk defect, like if the town had to fix a buckle in the sidewalk, then the town is actually on the hook for that. So that's part of why the easements that we've actually discussed with the property owners aren't just to establish the sidewalks, but they're to maintain them, because there will be moments when they have to come back later in the future and be able to, keep those sidewalks, correct and even and without buckles, without holes for the future, because it's not just about now.
And sorry, just a reminder, anyone not talking, if you would mute, there's some bad feedback. It'll be hard. Thank you.
Are there any other comments out there?
Yeah, I was just looking. My name's Byron Stillman again. I live at 138. So there are drawings of what's going to go on down in front of here that I can look at.
Yes, the town has the full-size plans in the office.
Right, so there'll be a retaining wall here and some plantings. So, I mean, I have a pretty good buffer here. I'd like to maintain my buffer.
You're at 38 South Broad Street?
138.
138. Let's see.
He's across from Stonington Arms. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stillman.
I am. You're right.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So we're not proposing a retaining wall. We're going to be able to place the new sidewalk and then grade up to the existing ground. Obviously, it's established grass so that it stays whole. But we're not proposing a retaining wall through that location.
And do you think that, again, that slope, how far do we have to come? You know what, I'll come down and look at the plans and I'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Steve, if there's no other questions and we are still recording, my suggestion is, can you just share the link to Dr. Susan Collins' email address or how the questions can be still asked, so people can be made aware of that one more time? Not hearing any other questions, but that way at least it's on the recording, and then we can just restate how they can submit questions and when the deadline for questions are.
Sure. So I'm sharing the screen again, and If anything pops up between now and February 22nd, please reach out to Dr. Susan Cullen, either email or call or write, and get your comments in by February 26th. That way, we're able to accommodate as many comments as we can. Any time before February 26th would be good.
Steve, and just for anyone who's on the phone who can't see the screen, my email address is scollen@stonington.gov, and I'd be very happy to share the plans, the slides, whatever information that you need about the project.
All right. Well, hearing no other comments or questions, I appreciate everyone's time, and like I said, get your comments in, and we'll be sure to discuss with the town. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming.